it goes back to why we started the master's program. So a lot of that was about the content, and I mentioned the network effect. So that's one of the major things that we look at is how much free to edit content and just content in general are masters posting, and then how many remixes are their posts generating, because they're really supercharging that network effect. So being able to show and prove that they do have a massive impact on that network effect shows a lot of ROI. The other piece of that is retention. So we have a really high retention rate. And because these are our super users, that's really what we want to see. We don't want to be losing folks and having them turn. And then the last thing is they love testing new things. So they really do serve as a really great incubator for Picsart. So when the company and just like different BUs have different ideas for content or programming or challenges or products or whatever that is, we do beta tests with them and do user research with them. And so we can get real-time feedback from real users, which is extremely valuable for everybody.
Hey everyone, I'm Joel Premack, host of the Community-Led Growth Show. Today I'm joined by Jocelyn Hsu, Director of Creator Community at Picsart. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jocelyn.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joel.
Of course. So before we dive into today's conversation, would you please give all of our listeners a quick 30-second intro about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So as Joel said, I'm Jocelyn. I'm currently the Director of Creator Community at Picsart. Prior to that, I was at Udemy working with their instructor community. And then before that, I was at Spoon working with their college contributors, making like food content. Right now, I lead a team of 4, which has a combination of community managers, operation managers, and also project managers.
Awesome. So I'm really excited for today's conversation because we're really going to focus on kind of 2 main buckets. The first bucket is really the essence of building community. You joined Picsart approximately 4 years or so ago. And I would love to hear in your first role as a community ops manager, what was the process for launching the Masters community like?
Yeah, totally. Man, definitely going back in time for that one. So when I first joined Picsart, we actually had a program called the VIPs, which was really folks who had like a verified check mark on the app. There wasn't a ton of programming or purpose around it. So one of the first things that I did at the company was to look more deeply at what was going on with that program and how we can make it more purposeful and actually turn it into a community program. And so that ended up turning into the Masters community, or the Masters program, which is an exclusive invite-only community or program for our most active and loyal creators on Picsart. So these are people who post in-app all the time. They share content with other people. So one thing that's unique about Picsart, it is a photo and video editing platform on both mobile and web. But what's unique about Picsart is you can share your own content, whether that's photos or stickers or replays, and other people can edit it. So we call these pieces of content free to edit. And what's really cool is you can go on Picsart and find free to edit content. Like I could share a picture of my corgi, and then other people can edit it and make like a corgi card for Christmas or whatever they want, which is really cool. And so what we found was there's like a population of folks who are really, really active on Picsart and share a lot of free to edit that gets remixed or edited a lot. And so we kind of built a program around that, where the purpose was to find these folks who were really great at creating. So we called them master contributors. They're the folks who are creating really highly editable and high quality free to edit content. And then also master storytellers. So these were people who were kind of making that final edit, taking that free to edit, and really showing what's possible with Picsart. Some of the stuff that they've created, I've tried to make it myself, and I truly cannot. They're just so talented. And so that's kind of where the Masters community came from, is finding these super users who are so good at using our app and are also providing the content that really is supercharging the network effect on Picsart.
That's really, really cool. And now I need to see more corgi content, clearly. So after this, I'm literally going to jump headfirst into Instagram and find all the corgis and all the feeds.
Yes,
so
definitely.
Thank you. I will be doing that right after, because we all need some corgis in our lives.
Always.
Yes. Well, from that, I think it's really interesting that you all built a program based off essentially the sharing and almost like supportive nature that these masters are contributing to the broader Pixar ecosystem.
Mhm.
So now I'm a little curious, like if you know this at all, because I know that this is going to be a little bit of a random question potentially. So I'm going off there, but what's the most meaningful or valuable benefit to masters who are in the community, like that they take the most advantage of or they feel the most connected to?
Yeah, so we actually run biannual surveys where we actually just ask them, what do you like the most about the program? And one thing we hear, which is not surprising, is they love getting access to Picsart Gold for free. So that is our subscription or premium tier. And as part of the master's program, you get access to Picsart Gold because from our perspective, it's giving back value to members. And by doing that, we can give them the subscription, but also it's making it easy for them to create. So some of these master storytellers are making really incredible things. And with Picsart Gold, you unlock all of these extra features and tools. So we want to give them the tools to be able to do the thing that they love doing. So that's part of it. And then I guess in second and third place, the things that we hear are most meaningful or valuable to them is they feel a really strong sense of community among the master's program and with other masters, which is really great. And then the third thing is getting access to the community team to new features, beta testing things, updates, and things like that.
That's awesome. So we're going to take a quick, like, really far rewind. I am just curious, like, I assumed that in the process of identifying these masters who you want to invite into the community program, that you're looking at product data
Mhm.
around their usage and such. So, what are some of the key data points that you're using to say this person is rising above the rest? And that's someone who we want to bring into this unique, very exclusive community that you've built.
Yeah, so it depends. So there are two, I guess, cohorts within the masters community that I mentioned. There's master storytellers and then master contributors. The application or recruitment process for those are slightly different. So the data points we look at are a little bit different. At the baseline, to qualify or even apply to be considered for becoming a part of the program, you need a certain number of followers, and then you also need to have been on the platform for a certain amount of time. And the other thing, like baseline, we look at is how often you're posting. And then once you meet those requirements, we also look at the quality of your art and like how creative or unique your own artistic ability is. And to be totally frank, that's not something I know how to judge. So we do lean on our creative and content team for that because they're trained in these things. And then so for master storytellers, it's mostly about how good are you at using our tools? So how good are these edits? Do you have your own artistic style? Things like that. And then for master contributors, it's looking more at like the quality of like a photo or a sticker. And then also how good are you at making them? With master contributors, we look at a couple of more data points, which are how many pieces of free to edit are you sharing and how often or how much is it remixed? And then for both groups, we also look at, any trust and safety violations, and also just like community fit. So the application has a couple of questions around like why you want to be a part of the community and things like that. So we're definitely looking for folks who want to give back, who want to teach others how to use the app, who want to share their content and things like that. We definitely don't want folks who have, trust and safety violations and things like that.
Of course. That's awesome to kind of hear the balance of the data and the minimums that one would need to essentially hit to be eligible to apply, as well as then the flip side, how you want to hear more about like the
Mhm.
why they want to join the program, maybe the value that they've gained from being a member of Pixar or like a customer of Pixar and how they hope to be able to contribute back to it. So I love that, like striking the right balance. That's cool. Thank you.
Mhm.
So here's one of my personal favorite questions. I love this. And so be ready because I now need to know you've created this amazing program. you have masters on both sides, the storytellers and the contributors. So how do you measure and show ROI for the master's community program back to Picsart leadership?
Yeah, so I think a big part of that, it goes back to why we started the master's program. So a lot of that was about the content, and I mentioned the network effect. So that's one of the major things that we look at is how much free to edit content and just content in general are masters posting, and then how many remixes are their posts generating, because they're really supercharging that network effect. So being able to show and prove that they do have a massive impact on that network effect shows a lot of ROI. The other piece of that is retention. So we have a really high retention rate. And because these are our super users, that's really what we want to see. We don't want to be losing folks and having them turn. And then the last thing is they love testing new things. So they really do serve as a really great incubator for Picsart. So when the company and just like different BUs have different ideas for content or programming or challenges or products or whatever that is, we do beta tests with them and do user research with them. And so we can get real-time feedback from real users, which is extremely valuable for everybody.
100%. I love that essential like outcome of like research from users in real time. I think that's incredibly valuable, and it only helps you all build and iterate faster and go in the right direction instead of hopefully minimizing any wrong directions. Not saying that there are any wrong directions.
For sure.
Yes. So at the top of the call or recording, I don't even know what I'm like, what world I'm living in. There's no call here. You mentioned how you manage a team of community ops, program managers, and community managers. So you mentioned four. So now I'm really curious how you go about setting annual KPIs and OKRs for the entire team.
Yeah, so actually before this year, Picsart was leaning more on V2 Moms, which is the framework that Mark Benioff and Salesforce came up with. This year, we've kind of moved more towards OKRs and KPIs. And so I think with both, whatever framework you're using to set up goals and vision and mission and then metrics for your team, it's really important to start at that company business level, see what the main priorities are for the business, and then you kind of cascade down or ladder down. So after that would be, so I currently report to a VP of product. So the product goals, and then within that, what the business unit goals are, and then my team. So that's kind of how we do it, is by cascading down. And so I do it both top down and bottoms up. So once I have the business unit level mission and the goals there and the rough KPIs, I share that and my vision for what's it called, the community team. And then I give my direct reports the time and autonomy to come up with their own KPIs and their own OKRs. And then we come back together to discuss and then decide on a couple, because I really want them to learn how to come up with goals. So that's really important to me, to give them the flexibility and ability to be like, I think this is how to measure success in my role or measure success for whatever program or project that I'm running. And then we kind of agree on a couple of them. The goal really is to have a handful of main KPIs for my team. So it's not like 20 of them that we're trying to track, and then like the job is tracking them and not actually seeing how you're performing. There's a couple that are leading or things, looking at things that we're doing. So like developing a strategy and putting together a roadmap or actually launching the program. And then there's a couple that are lagging. So like community sentiment or retention or how much content is created. But at the end of the day, I think like V2 Moms and OKRs are really important too, to make sure not just everyone on the team is aligned, but everyone across the company is aligned. So if my team gets a request from like the marketing team or some other team to do something, but it doesn't ladder back to our team's objectives or vision or mission, it's a lot easier to say, no, sorry, this is what we agreed upon at the beginning of the year. We can't do that. Or if it is a really pressing priority and the company has shifted for whatever reason or reprioritized, we can better revisit the objectives. But it's a great way to start off those conversations.
I love that. And it's really unique, I feel, because what you've essentially described is like co-creating your OKRs as a goal, similarly to how oftentimes you'll see community professionals co-create, for example, a code of conduct for the community, um, which I think is really cool because you're essentially getting like their buy-in
Yeah,
literally each step of the way, and you're heading in the same direction together. So
yeah.
congratulations, you've just made goals and OKRs a community thing now.
Yeah, I think it's just so important that everyone is bought into what they're working towards and that it's not just like me saying these are the goals you need to hit, but them also pitching like, hey, I think I can hit this, or I think this is what's the most important for whatever program that I'm running.
Mhm. That makes a lot of sense, and especially how you all live under product, where a lot of it I could imagine, I'm imagining now things here, could be tied to either features or product usage
Mhm.
goals or OKRs. So I think that that's really unique how it now gives you flexibility in terms of how you impact those through programs or content or events.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I know you mentioned a few of some of the OKRs and goals that you all use, but I was wondering if you would share any other examples of current or past ones that you found success when essentially rolling them out to your team after you kind of gone through, excuse me, that process of co-creating them.
Yeah, we're actually making them right now, so can't share anything for 2023. But in the past, some of the things we've looked at, for example, for the master's program, are retention metrics for retention for quarter over quarter for both master storytellers and master contributors, and then also looking at the recruitment funnel. So what are the conversion rates and going from application to actually becoming a master? And then we also look at sense of belonging. So I mentioned we do that biannual survey. So what percent of masters feel like they are a part of the community or how satisfied they are, kind of like NPS, but not quite.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing those. Now, as we wrap up our conversation, I need to know what are the three community trends you're watching for in 2023 and beyond?
Oh, that's such a good question and so timely. Um, I think we're gonna see, or I think I'm already seeing like more senior community professionals becoming consultants. And I think a lot of them will be starting their own businesses and really helping companies figure out strategically, like, do you need a community? Do you not need a community? What type of community you need and what that looks like. Um, and one thing that I'm also looking out for and hoping to see is just more emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think community professionals can really make an impact there as we are building community for large customer bases and building in that focus for diversity and inclusion, I think can be so key. And I think we have a lot of opportunity to build that into the communities that we're making. Um, and then finally, I think I would love to see more emphasis on internal communities. And I feel like I've been seeing a little bit more of that in the recent years, most likely for employees at large companies, but also just would love to see more like community building tactics and strategies leveraged when folks are building like ERGs or just like employee groups.
Awesome. I love all those. And I have many thoughts, especially on the first two.
Yeah.
So
What are you
that's,
thinking?
ooh, okay. Um, hmm. Well, first on consultants, definitely seeing some of that. I also am seeing, or I guess not really seeing, I'm now experiencing what it's like to a very, very minor degree of like in the last week, for example, I've had three people reach out to me about having calls. I don't know why, but I'm having calls with people
Yeah.
about community. And I'm like, I'm 27 over here. I've done this a couple times. So I love that you think like I'm great and I'm an all know like all the wise person, but I'm certainly not. I just have my thoughts and opinions, and I'm happy to share them with you. And here are other people too who I think like provide really great content to help you better understand and explore the value of community and where you want it to sit because of the business outcomes you're trying
Hmm.
to impact. That's one of my biggest things
Yeah,
is
for
like
sure.
people need to understand the business outcomes, then the owners of those outcomes, and then community needs to sit within that function if it's not its own function.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of companies kind of exploring what community could look like for them. And I think we're likely to see a lot more people working with consultants to figure that part out instead of trying to hire like a director or head of community before they really have it figured out. I think going the consultant route makes a lot of sense.
100%. And then secondly, when you talk about bringing in diversity, equity, and inclusion into communities, I think it's really cool. And I'm starting to see a little bit of this, honestly, in a couple of communities. I know community professionals at where it's almost kind of like, as you said, ERGs, where, but it's for specific identity groups within the community. So, for example, I know that metadata's community demand that Katie Ray is the head of community and runs. They recently launched a women in marketing group.
Yeah.
And so it kind of has that same outside look as an ERG because it's tied to an identity characteristic. But I think it'll be very exciting, as you said, to like see how we roll that out more.
Yeah, I think Shanna also at HubSpot has Black at Inbound, and I think that's also just like an excellent example of folks really thinking about this and how it plays a role in their broader communities.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Jocelyn, again, for being on the Community-Led Growth Show today. If people want to follow and or connect with you after watching or listening to the episode, what are the best channels and or handles for them to do so?
My Twitter is at Jocelyn Types, and then you can also find me at LinkedIn, Jocelyn Hsu.
Awesome. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thanks, you too.